Hey everyone, and welcome back to Just Start, the podcast where we skip the theory and get straight to the raw, unfiltered truth of building from scratch. I'm your host, Rish from the Boon platform. Every week, we sit down with founders who have been in the deep trenches, the ones who know what it's like to stare at a blank screen and will something into existence. We're here to talk about the grind, the tactics for getting those first 100 diehard fans, and the real story behind turning an idea into something people actually use and believe in. Today, I'm excited to welcome Ethan Rife, the founder of Kingdomly, a platform that's quickly becoming a game changer in the NFT world. Ethan's vision is all about making NFTs accessible, easy to use, and truly cross-chain. I'm not going to steal Ethan's thunder on what Kingdomly is all about and how it operates, but here's what I will share, what really sets Kingdomly apart. It's its commitment to affordability and transparency. For example, they charge a flat fee of just $2 per NFT for bridging across blockchains, making them one of the most cost-efficient options out there. And the results speak for themselves. Kingdomly is now a trusted platform on Parachain, where not too long ago they earned an incredible $21,000 in fees in just roughly 4 hours with a single NFT collection. Ethan's mission is to break down barriers in Web3, empowering both creators and collectors to participate in the digital asset revolution. Ethan, welcome to the show.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me, Resh. Super happy to be here, man.
All right, Ethan, I'm going to kick off straight away. Ethan, to start, could you give us or give our audience the elevator pitch to what the Kingdomly realm is, and to give some context on your journey? Which blockchain did you first choose to build on, and what chains you currently are operating on?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say the high-level overview of what we do at Kingdomly is help people launch, deploy, create out successful NFT collections. We have a few products that facilitate that. Our no-code creator, our marketplace, our staking protocol, and our bridge all help us facilitate really successful NFT collection launches and engagement thereafter. In regard to the story, I guess, or the context for what led us to this moment, I would say we began roughly in 2021 and started out as an Axie Infinity Guild and kind of moved there into uh, scaling technology for people who wanted to pay people out online in a more efficient manner. And then we just kept trying different things until we found ourselves a part of the Parachain ecosystem. Before that, we were live on the Ethereum network and then Arbitrum. And I believe we added Base somewhere along the way as well.
So before you reach Parachain and you're operating on all the other different chains, did you hit product market fit straight away, or was there a struggle in finding out in terms of your footing, carving out a niche space for yourself? And was there a moment in time when you just thought about it, my days, this is just too difficult?
Yeah, PMF was really tough. I would say getting the PMF can be really difficult depending on, what your product is and what solution and community it serves. I built Kingdomly Creator as a way to find PMF sooner. Sort of the other ideas we had before Creator were a bit more ethereal and weren't as proven out. Creator was more of an amalgamation or like a fusion of things that I'd seen already succeed. So as long as we could sort of hammer together different components of the value chain and NFT creation, we thought we had pretty good shot at CMF. Now, I didn't really know many people that were that deep in the crypto space or like had launched any NFT collections before Parachain. Met Tez, who was a creator of a podcast in the Parachain ecosystem called the Honeycast, and he wanted to launch an NFT collection with us, and he didn't really have the technical know-how in order to do so, and so he was our first real collection creator. For us, the PMF comes from attracting like top-tier collection creators, and usually the people that want to come mint those collections follow the creators. So as long as we attract the creators, the demand side will also come. So that was where we cracked our first bit into PMF. But I mean, that was like 2 years of pivoting after late 2021. So we had late 2021, Guild Scaling Tech, 2022, NFT Rental Marketplace, 2023, early 2023 was the genesis of Kingdomly Creator, the no-code NFT Launchpad. And we had early PMF, but had to handhold people through the entire process of launching the NFT. Might even have been easier if we had just done it manually for them instead of trying to get them to run it through our no-code Launchpad. But we continued to iterate on that. I'd say, to give you a short timeline, 2023, we had our first launch. I think it must have been Yeah, somewhere February, March, somewhere in there for the Honeycast. And uh, we had actually it might have been a bit later, maybe June. Oh, wait, yeah, uh, and then July perhaps we did Baradoge. They minted out, did 120K in volume through our smart contracts on our platform. But all in all, that year in 2023, we only did about I think 6K, 7K in revenue. And then September is when my technical co-founder decided to leave, and then we shut down the protocol for a little while. And back in 2024, relaunched it just on a whim and ended up finding a lot of traction then, just due to the nature of the crypto market and where things were at, generally speaking.
So here's very interesting. When you say a technical co-founder left, and I don't think people speak about those moments when the person who knows how to code. I'm assuming, Ethan, you're a coder yourself.
I know a bit of code, but I actually haven't written a single line of code for this project. So I would consider myself the non-technical co-founder for Kingdomly.
Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. A lot of people don't speak about the dark times when the person who can write the doing of the codes leaves or decides to move on to other projects. When the moment came in, say like, okay, I got to shut this down. What made you go the extra moment, say like, no, I got to restart this in 2024? Did you have signal that, hey, there might be interest from people here? What was the moment that made you think like, I think it's time, number one. Number two, how did you progress now with no technical co-founder?
Yeah, great question. One, I would, if any like aspiring entrepreneurs are listening, I would say like it's probably better not to like co-found in the beginning. In fact, like if you're trying to do it without money, like maybe don't. If you're somebody who has a skill set that can earn you, I mean, if you're in America, what, like 70, 80K a year, pretty reasonable for a tech role. I would take that role and I would take half your compensation and then just hire somebody abroad that's relatively affordable to do the tech role in the company, because then you don't have to worry as much about interpersonal conflict with somebody on the cap table, cleaning up the cap table, the legalities of founders, all of that. And ultimately, that's what I did in order to continue to sustain the company. Had a great friend of mine, somebody I respect a lot, that's now the CTO, who we've worked with for a long time. Just had him step into the role of the technical co-founder. He did incredibly well. In fact, we saw great improvement in the production level quality of the code, and we continued to hire more friends around that CTO and scale the team. But the reason we pulled the plug actually after my ex co-founder left wasn't necessarily because we had a technical gap that couldn't be filled, but more so it was a lot of time and money spent, my personal money, like over, I would say somewhere around like 50K directly invested into the product up until that point. And so having only received 1K in revenue, not even enough to really cover 1/5 of the original investment, and not really seeing any hope for the future, I just needed a break. And so took the time to go pick up a sales job here in Austin, Texas. And from there, just made money and decided I was just gonna really try my best at that, and made I think 80K in 3 months worth of sales just due to some very fortunate events. And then decided I was gonna, take some time away from everything and figure out what I was gonna do in 2025 or 2024. So that's when I went back home for Christmas, decided with a friend of mine who was also young, ambitious entrepreneur who had done the roofing sales job with me and done really well as well. We're like, let's go to Thailand. Let's go just reset, kind of get a bigger view on life, try and figure out what we want to do next. And I had started thinking of an AI startup I wanted to do. He really hadn't figured out yet exactly what he wanted to do, but we both kind of set out to reset and get a bigger lens. And it was in Thailand while I was seeking mentorship from somebody who was doing an AI startup similar to mine, had a decent amount invested by institutional and had already raised a VC round. It was during that time that I received a call from somebody that I had known from uh, Barachain, where we had launched the two collections, or where the ecosystem in which we launched the two collections on Arbitrum in 2023. And he reached out and he said, "Hey man, Testnet is live." Which, if you're in crypto, you understand that's kind of that's a big event for an ecosystem when the
Yeah.
testnet goes live, because there's a lot of testnet activations. There's a lot of now activity going around the ecosystem, a lot of speculation on the token, and a lot of that speculation had a direct correlation to the NFT ecosystem of Parachain. And so he said, "Hey man, like get live on Berachain Testnet, get 15 collections launched. Mainnet's coming soon." Little did I know it was going to come more than a year later, but we launched the platform. We started talking to people. It was very fortunate that there was a large ecosystem participant who had favor on us and pushed people to launch our way. We did a little bit of DMing, a little bit of chatting with potential people to launch collections. And it was very fortunate that some great collection creators chose us. We ended up launching, I think, like maybe around 100 plus collections for the Berachain ecosystem last year and helping them raise more than 10 million, I think,
Wow.
through these NFT collections. Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty good, pretty meaningful.
Well, pretty meaningful is a real underplaying of what you have built. But here's where I want to find out, Ethan, what made you feel so strongly about dedicating yourself to building tools for NFT creators? Because normally, if you look at OpenSea in the early days, it's just a platform you mint, sell. What made you think like that's what I want to dedicate myself, especially when you said 7K in the first year, it demotivates anybody, and you still grind it out.
Yeah, that's a great question. Probably a bit of stupidity. Like that's the only excuse I have. I mean, I I think like the answer to that is a bit of stubbornness and then a bit of like opportunism or opportunistic ideology. It was like, I had some money I had inherited when I was younger, and I wanted to multiply that. Like it was my goal to multiply it by a lot. And so I'd always thought that if I could get a VC to invest in something I was doing, then I would be able to multiply it on paper. If I could bring that to exit, it would be a massive multiple on whatever I had put in. So that's why I got into crypto in the way that I did. I had a finance professor at my university who actually had a fund for crypto venture capital. And so he had me over to his house and I pitched him and he had some interest and said, go build it. So I started building it. That was the Axie, the Guild Scaling Tech and the rental marketplace. And then 2022 happened and I just couldn't even get hold of him. So I was on a bit of an island, having already invested like a decent amount into trying to make it work. And, I had a little bit of a product there and, I had a team of people interested and wanting to push kind of the thing forward. And so we just kind of kept iterating from there. I mean, it wouldn't honestly, if I had to like scope out, it's like a very tough market. It kind of makes sense. Like there's part of me that's like, look, now part of my like investment criteria for if I'm going to bootstrap something, like I think a big part of it is like, is this distasteful to VCs? And if so, like maybe this is a good one for me to enter into. Because if you're trying to actually generate any cash from a product that really competes with interested capital and isn't very contrarian, then you're going to end up going against people that don't need to make money for the first 15 years of their existence. I mean, 8 years after Amazon went public, like they finally decided to get cash flow positive a little bit. And they could have been far before. Same thing with Tesla, same thing with all the big tech companies. When you're being financed in the way that they are and the way the startup economy works in the US is that when you absolutely have to and never before, just optimize for providing something of value in order to keep anybody else from being able to compete. I guess to summarize, like I think NFTs, crypto wouldn't have been my first choice, but it was, I believed I had the resources and connections to make something meaningful happen and just kept taking one step after another, probably refusing to quit at times where perhaps it would have been wise to, and found myself where I'm at now, I guess, after hitting some traction, continuing to invest, continuing to believe. Now I really like our market position. I think the NFT market is an interesting one. It's not something I think we're going to be, I guess, facilitating in the current format for forever. It has sort of a capped product market fit in general right now, NFTs do, but I'm excited for where they could expand and we're certainly positioning for that.
I know the story in terms of how you came up with Kingdom. Yeah, and I was, to be honest, I was thinking like that's a really cool name to have. But for the purpose of benefit for the audience, would you mind sharing in terms of why you chose it to be Kingdomly?
Yeah. So it's like, it's kind of two parts. One, I've had a strong faith for a while now, so I believe in God, and I believe that that's important. Another one of the larger components is we were scaling Axie Infinity gaming guilds, and so because we're scaling guilds, like guild is a medieval terminology, like maybe a small like village. What's larger than a town or village? It's a kingdom, and so if you're scaling a guild into whatever it's larger, it's guild scaling tech, we wanted to call it Kingdomly. And I like the idea of branding in general, like having a generalist, like vibey brand that you can build like lore and, interesting graphics and a theme around. I want something to evoke an emotion. That's why I named it after kind of like, Kingdomly is scaling. And that really allowed us to pivot from, gaming, like crypto gaming, like guild scaling technology to NFT rental marketplace to NFT creator, is because we didn't call it like guild scalio or guild scale or .com. Like it's really like, I really like the idea of having more generalized branding, like Uber, for example, kind of evokes an emotion. It's a pertinent name and you can do some, modern tech branding around it, as opposed to like rideshare.com or rideshare app. It's like, I think that the brand is really intentional. It fits with my value system, my faith, but it also fits with kind of the theme of what we were doing at the time and potentially what we'll do in the future if we dip back into gaming.
Right. So here's where now I want to get into the nitty-gritty stuff.
Mhm.
The framework of any NFT marketplace uh, face classic chicken and egg problem. Developers won't build unless they see path to users, but there are no users without developers building things, especially when you just launch on a testnet. How did you get your first developer or team to take a bet on Kingdomly? What was your pitch? Can you share your roadmap that you actually offered them when you had nothing but a vision and some early code on your platform?
Yeah. I mean, the testnet NFTs are interesting and they're cool and they're good for grabbing attention. Our first like launches weren't testnet. They were Arbitrum or ETH mainnet. This is where kind of the bears of bear chain would like buy NFTs to speculate on some future value that might be realized when the chain goes live. So it wasn't on testnet. They were on ETH mainnet and Arbitrum, and they honestly wanted to work with us. Tez from THC wanted to work with us because he just liked the way that we handled the conversation better. There was another competing platform called Scatter that there was some interest in at the time, but we pride ourselves in really wanting to serve our customers. I mean, we want to give them the best possible experience from end to end. We want to handhold them. We want to assist them. We care about them. We monetize in alignment with their success, and we don't charge them anything before. And the emotion that was perceived by Tez as he chatted with the Scatter guys was one of pride and a lack of real desire to go above and beyond. Whereas his impression of us was that we were ready to assist in every way possible. And I think that that is really core for anybody trying to build like SaaS. Is what you're doing is you're building a service that's automated. So while you're refining and tweaking the product to make sure it can handle the majority of the needs for the user without you having to do stuff, do extra things in order to fit the needs that your customer wants. Because at the end of the day, you have to find a happy medium behind your vision for the product, which very much does matter, and the customer's ideal experience. So as a final like thing that I would say as advice to people is that often you'll hear the refrain that the customer is always correct. And as much as the customer can be always right in the sense that as a salesperson, you need to appease them and work with them and make sure they're happy, doesn't necessarily mean they're the best one to drive forward your product's vision. A lot of customers think they want things that they wouldn't be willing to pay for. A lot of customers don't know how to have a hierarchy in terms of product feature set or know what it's like to have a backlog, that spans from one end of the country to the other. So what you have to do is ask yourself like what your opinionated bet on the future of the industry is. There's a famous entrepreneur, forgetting his first name, Ford, from the Ford Motor Company, that said if I would have asked people if what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So sometimes the customer doesn't know what they want. They don't know the technology the way that you do. They don't know the market the way that you do. All they know is that they wish they could get from point A to point B better, faster, more conveniently, in greater comfort. And your job as the entrepreneur is to then interpret that need and that desire for functionality and find the best technology, best solution that can fill that. And so that's what we've tried to do along the way, listen to the customer, try and go above and beyond, give them what they want, but also not take that to the highest degree and just kind of decide that whatever the customer wants, that's our new roadmap. To have an opinionated roadmap and stick to that, but also be willing to go above and beyond and meet feature requests for customers and really give them exactly what they're hoping for. Because who knows, maybe another customer will want that same feature. And if you can build rapport with them, then hopefully they'll open up doors for you to work with many of their friends.
So, Ethan, that's interesting because looking in hindsight, it's easy to differentiate signal and noise. But when you're in the trenches, especially where you were, how did you identify what was signal from the customer or from the marketplace you're building for? Because I struggle sometimes to identify what's signal and what's noise. How did you find out by signal?
Yeah, first of all, I say like we all struggle with it, and people who don't think they struggle with it, I think like I'm more worried about them than anyone who recognizes. Yeah, it's like not all noise is signal, and not all signal is noise. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, they're just too attentive to the noise, and then they're or too attentive to what's going on, and they think it's all really too important, and they don't know how to filter. In order to filter well, there's a few frameworks I was taught in school that I like to reference in my mind. Is that you're just doing thought experiments. Is like, is this something other people want? Is this something other people offer? Is this something people would actually be willing to pay for? If so, how much? Can we try charging for it? Right? Like, but if we don't charge for it, will this increase our conversion rate XYZ? So you have to go through those thought experiments and just be honest with yourself, and also open those up to, your co-founders, partners, employees, other customers, anybody who's willing to listen. Talk to them about it, because wisdom is found in the counsel of many. And so when you're making product decisions, especially if it's a larger product decision, right? Like if
Mhm.
it's an integration that's going to take like a couple months, but you got to be really careful. You don't have a great shot at, many of those iterations before you run out of capital. So we've been blessed because it gets easier as time goes forward. We're still very much like in the trenches, and I'm sure we make bad product decisions all the time. Like we spent, months working on something called Guilds, which was like a social, like Reddit type forum that was token gated, and it got very little usage. And I realized competing against social media is not a good idea, especially if it's like refined down to a crypto niche. It's just not going to be easy to monetize. No one would pay for it, essentially. And it just wasn't worth the upkeep. So we deprecated that product. We also spent like a good maybe 5 months and 3 developers, maybe even four, on staking, which we launched earlier this year, which hasn't seen the level of adoption that we were hoping it would. We had a lot of people interested. And that this is where you got to get through the noise. Because people are interested doesn't mean they're actually going to use it. And doesn't mean that they would actually pay to use it either. So, and then even in that, there's the crypto market that changes, right? Like people only want staking if they have a real reward to give to their stakers. But if the entire market goes down, then they have nothing to give, and therefore staking becomes kind of useless to them. So there's a lot of dynamics. I mean, you really can't foresee all of them, and you can't be afraid of making mistakes. You got to just push in the right direction and hope you'll at least learn from mistakes where you build the wrong product. Because we built the wrong product in guilds, right? So we swung and we missed, or sorry, in guilds, the social stuff, but also in the guild scaling tech, swung and missed on that. The market died, actually died, didn't work. We tried our hand at NFT rental marketplace, swung and a miss. We tried our hand at creator, boom, swing and a hit. We then wanted to add additional utility on the backside of creator, so we did guilds, swing and a miss. The next product was marketplace. People used it, so a swing and a hit, but people weren't really willing to pay for it because marketplace, secondary marketplace monetization had been moved down to like 0.5%, right? Like that's what's competitive now. And so when you're doing like even 100K in volume a day, which is like a lot of money to be moving around in NFTs, and that's going through your marketplace, you as a marketplace make $500, not meaningful enough to really keep the lights on. I mean, if it's every day, if it's 100K every day, that's great. But I don't. I think that's not the case. I think marketplaces that say they do that are market making their own marketplace and just moving their own money around. Get back to the main point. The idea is like you can fail a lot. You're probably gonna fail a lot. Just keep doing it. Keep learning. Keep talking to people. Keep trying, and eventually you're gonna find gold. Our bridge hit. We made a few 100K from that, and we'll probably make a bunch more from that in the future. So like out of the whatever, if I were to add them all up, maybe 6 products we've done, we've maybe hit on 3 of them, which I think is fine. I just posted about this just a couple of days ago, but like life is about percentages. It's not about, just winning every time or losing every time. It's like just work on your percentage. I mean, NBA players, I think it's like pretty good if they're shooting what, like, 30, 40, somewhere in there, 40% from the three. Like that's great. Don't get obsessed about having to hit every shot. Like just keep shooting your shot. and optimize to shoot as many shots as possible. Stay lean. Like if you can develop and you can just pay somebody to do the BD, like do that for a long time and just get as much early feedback as you can. Don't get aggressive and scale up until you absolutely have to, but like optimize for just getting as many shots and as many reps as you can in while you're small. And then once you get bigger, you can take bigger shots and you can take them slower and you can afford to do more market research ahead of time and launch in a different way. But like honestly, like if you're still trying to hit product market fit, which I don't say that in a condescending way, but anybody who needs to hit PMF, which is really hard to hit, what you need to do is like, I mean, there's a couple ways I would do it, but use your talent to essentially get a product idea in front of somebody as soon as you possibly can. And if they like it, build it as soon as you can, as ugly as you can. There better be a few bugs in it when you deliver it to them. Otherwise, you shipped too late. So like just get it in front of people and get them to use it. If they're willing to use it, even if it's buggy, it's probably pretty good. And once you can refine it and monetize it, you're in a better position. But that's my honest take. Like entrepreneurship's hard and you can be doing a lot of things right and still not see the right results. But like have a short timetable on it too. Be like, my goal is to stand this up, vibe code this in a matter of 30 days, get some immediate feedback, have an opinion on it, and decide whether or not this is going to be something that I invest more into.
So here's the Ethan. You started 6 different products. 50% of them didn't get the traction that you and your team envisioned. Were there any particular lessons that you took from them that made the other 3 successful? So because the way I look at it was,
sure.
then it's not actually a waste or it's not a failure, because those were actually stepping stones to get the other 3 into a phenomenal place.
True. Yeah, 100%. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like it's never a waste as long as you're learning.
On that front. So here's the other part. I mean, scaling from 1 to 100 is a totally different challenge.
Yeah. Totally.
That is what. So that now, since Kingdomly operates, you went to Ethereum, Arbitrum, Berachain. You've likely seen different community cultures. They have their own quirks and whole cliques, the mindset, the lingo. What were the common tactics that actually worked on onboarding your first 100 developers or builders? Could you break them down?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're in the crypto space, like, and you want to have early success, make yourself really ecosystem aligned. We were super aligned with Berachain. Yeah, we had done other chains before, but like we hadn't really launched any collections for any other chain ecosystem. So we were 100% focused on one chain ecosystem, and we're happy to do that. Now, I don't know, the playbook for crypto is changing all the time. I don't know if the same thing's going to work a year from now than it did last year or 2 years ago. But I will say, like, finding a community early and like really optimizing for that. And it was really, we were, as some people would say, lucky. I would say we were blessed to find a community that the foundation was relatively supportive, or at least had no say in people launching NFTs on other chains before mainnet, right? If that wasn't the case, which it isn't the case in every ecosystem, that means you have to wait until they go to mainnet to actually create any economic activity for your protocol. That was different for us because we could go launch a bunch of NFTs before the chain went live, and then we bridged them over to the chain when the chain went live. That works fine for us. Now, if you're doing like a DeFi protocol, you're going to have to wait until mainnet in order to just generate any like actual, revenue. So what worked for us isn't going to work for everyone else. But what I'll say is, like, we found an ecosystem that aligned with what we were looking for in terms of very NFT interested, not a lot of competition in the ecosystem, opportunity for economic activity pre-chain, which was necessary. Honestly, if we wouldn't have had that, we would have gotten screwed. Last year, there was no mainnet, and we did, pretty darn well, just facilitating all of these NFT collection launches on Kingdomly. And so we're in a really good position. Did we go out knowing that? Did we know which ecosystem we should be looking for? No. It was a circumstance or divine intervention that we came across Bearchain and that we were warmly received there. And it just happened to be the best ecosystem for us. But what I will say is you tend to actually, your surface area for luck or divine intervention increases the more reps you put in. Put in more work, talk to more people. Right? If it's on the dev side, go write more code. If it's on the business development side, go talk to more people. And the more you do that, the higher chance you have of coming across that ecosystem. For me, it was my ex co-founder put us in contact with that ecosystem. I met him through a friend. that was also Milady that I also knew like in the NFT space, the university I was going through. So there was just like, but if I hadn't put myself out there and pitched, people on what I was doing with Vaccine Infinity Guild, I wouldn't have had a connection with the guy who connected with the technical co-founder, who wouldn't have connected me with Parachain, which wouldn't have, connected me with our first launch, which, wouldn't have led to all these other launches, which then, funded the growth of the platform. And then you gave us the opportunity to go into other places and really expand. I say like the playbook depends on like what you have at your disposal. If you have a platform that can monetize pre-mainnet, then you can find a similar niche as us. If you need mainnet to hit, then you need grant funding or some type of funding before, and you need to keep extremely lean before. And you need to have some expectation of some meaningful revenue come mainnet in order to make up for the amount of investment that you put in pre-mainnet. And you need a way to get an illicit product feedback pre-mainnet. So you need to get live on testnet. You need people to go play around with it. You need to incentivize that type of behavior, but not make too many promises as to give so much value away that when you do TGE, you just kind of went out, right? So there's a lot of like trade-offs you're making along the way. For me, I knew exactly what I wanted. I don't want a token. I want to build a profitable SaaS company. Everything we did and said and the way that we presented ourselves aligned with that. There was a lot of, I'd say, things outside of our control that made it work. And then those are kind of the parameters we use to assess our alignment with any given ecosystem. But the last thing I'll say is we didn't have a plan going into it. This is all in retrospect, like it worked out. And this is how we thought about it as it evolved. But going into it, we were just very fortunate that what we had said and how we aligned ourselves may have attracted that which was actually beneficial for us.
So, Ethan, this part that I heard you say a few times now, stay lean. But the idea of staying lean varies when who you ask. Now, I've heard people say like, until you reach $1 million in revenue, you should never expend more than 8 people. That's lean in that one sense. In crypto, as how you have started, you don't have a token, so your reserves are your income is coming purely from revenue. What's your definition of lean here?
Oh yeah, I mean, great question. Lean is just like whatever you can afford. If like you're broke, like, one, don't quit your day job. That's a lot of entrepreneur friends I have, and no offense to anybody that's done this, I've done this, but like a lot of young entrepreneur friends are like, I'm quitting my day job, I'm gonna go all in, this is my calling. I respect it because I did the same thing. But what that ends up doing is now you're living off your savings, or God forbid going into debt, which I hope not. Don't do that. Absolutely do not do that. Don't go in debt for a startup. Go work a tech job, learn what you need to do, take half your paycheck, live at your mom's house if you have to, and go invest everything you possibly can while still living a life that you genuinely enjoy and want to live, and go invest that extra money into getting the product built, getting marketing done, whatever your interest is or whatever the need is in what you're building. Go take that money and do that, because it takes money to make money. I think a lot of people think they're just gonna whatever, will it into being by cutting a lot of weird deals around equity and advisory roles and trying to get grants and all that. Like, get the money and then go build it. And so it's like lean is really like whatever you can afford. It depends on like how much revenue you're doing too. Like I've heard Steam is lean because they only have 300 employees. I don't know what their revenue is every year, but like lean is also a metric of like how much are you spending versus how much are you making. And if you can keep the like revenue per person on the team really high, that's a good position to be in, because it allows you to give them opportunity to move up. It allows you to give greater lifestyle opportunities or like relaxation opportunities, because it means you stay relatively efficient. But lean in the early days is all about maximizing every resource you have. So you definitely don't, get that great like work-life balance. In fact, like work-life balance might not even be in your vocabulary at the super lean stage, although I would argue it should be. You want to have a sustainable lifestyle if you're going to be doing this for the long run. So don't screw yourself up too much. But yeah, that's sort of the framework I think about when I'm like, okay, like how do I run a lean startup? It's don't spend on anything you absolutely don't have to. Don't go do marketing. Don't do a landing page. Literally just build the product and talk to people. That's all you need to do. You don't do marketing. Don't start a company. Don't get a business bank account. Maybe do those things if you're starting to spend a lot of money and you want to like at least write it off, like go open an LLC. But yeah, just don't spend money on stupid things, and essentially take what you have and maximize it. guess that's what I mean by saying stay lean.
I 100% appreciate that candid answer there. But as now your team has grown to in terms of helping Parachain create NFT creators sell up to 10 million plus, you are growing your team. Is there a particular expense revenue ratio per employee you're looking at in terms of you don't want to spend more than 30%? I'm just making these numbers up, but I'm trying to understand
Yeah.
how does one have that mindset?
No, that's great. That's a great way to think about it. Because we have scaled up a decent amount. And this is like my personal thing. I don't hire from the US right now because I think you can get great talent abroad that's much more affordable. I mean, I am the only person in the US. We have other people from Europe, but also India, Nigeria, and the Philippines. And we're really happy about that. So it's like that's part of being lean is like just don't hire from really expensive places to hire. That's part of how I think about it. Yeah, I don't have metrics for like
Sure.
exactly what ratios in terms of revenue. I mean, we have really low quality revenue. Like we have one-off revenue based on mint collections minting out. So we don't have like recurring SaaS revenue. So it's really hard to go take like forward-looking revenue projections and be like, well, here's our percentage that we need to spend on team. Now that is the right thing to do in the long run when you have a mature company. But really the way to like the mentality for staying lean isn't as much about obsessing over metrics in the early stages. It's about obsessing over getting every bit of value you can around every piece of talent that exists in the most ethical way possible, right? So we don't work on the weekends. I don't force my guys to work on the weekends. Sometimes they want to because we have a culture of greatness at our company and I'm not going to stop them. But when they're clocked in, they're clocked in. And we're making sure we know what they're doing every second of the day, if possible. And so in America, there's this culture of like, oh, micromanagement's so bad. It's so dumb. It's like micromanagement's great. If you're a startup and you're not micromanaging, you're failing. Like you need to know exactly what's going on every dollar spent. Must be spent efficiently, affordably. Use Fiverr, use Upwork. Find people that are going to do the same quality of work for less. Like bargain hard and make it work in a way that's also ethical, right? We still pay above market rate for every jurisdiction we're in. The people that work with me are what most people would say potentially underqualified and overpaid. But like part of my job is to invest into them personally and make sure that they have significant upside for the risk they're taking on, that they're able to take care of themselves and their families. And that's what I pride myself in. So stay lean, but be ethical about it. Don't like pay people less than they're worth, or else they're going to produce work that's less than ideal.
That's really valuable insight. A lot of things people know, I guess, but it's when you put them into context, it becomes really valuable, especially you building a startup the way you have built multiple times. Now, here's one I want to ask for the non-technical individuals, like myself. What are the right questions to ask when you're working in marketing and BD? Because you can ask a lot of questions, but when, how do you identify the right questions to ask? When you speak to your customers, I can ask a lot of questions, but asking real good quality questions is a skill.
Sure.
Have you
Yeah.
found an approach, or what have you found the key 6 or 7 questions that you ask every person every time?
I mean, that's a great question. The first question I like to ask in every situation, like if I'm working with a customer or a partner, like I'll try and ask this, and even my team a lot is just how are you doing? I think that's like a really basic question, but it doesn't necessarily fit like the product, but it's what I did when I was doing door to door sales. I'd be like, hey, how are you doing? Because it's disarming, allows people to actually assess how they're doing, and hopefully they'll share it with you, right? I heard somebody once say like, I always ask my hairstylist or like barber, the person that cuts my hair, how they're doing, because if they're having a bad day, I don't want them to cut my hair bad. And so like understand how somebody's doing is going to impact the lens in which like the rest of the conversation goes. So starting out by showing them you care about them, asking them how they're doing as a human being is going to set you up to hopefully have more intimate conversations about the real problems they're facing and how your product might be able to solve that. People don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And so if you're not starting your questioning, if you're doing like product interview questions, or if you're even, just asking them questions about the problems they're facing in hopes that you might be able to sell them on using your product, if you're not starting it by showing them that you care about the person, like why would they want to work with you? There's a lot of other products that might be able to solve their problem. At the end of the day, you're a startup, your product sucks probably, And that's okay. Don't focus on selling the product as much as just selling yourself as a human being that they'd want to work with, because it's likely they're going to have to work with you. It's likely it's going to be a process. It's likely you don't have as competitive a product as somebody else. And it's likely that the only real differentiator is your attitude and how you show up to work with them. So starting by just saying, by caring enough to ask them how they're doing can really set the tone for every other question that you want to ask. And now I give a caveat is you actually have to care. People know if you care or not. People know if you're just asking them just to ask them, or asking them just because you want something from them. So it's more about the right question. It's more about the right heart posture and intent behind the question, in my opinion.
If you were to advise young Ethan again on how to start a startup, what would you say are the 5 points you would give them in terms of what you should be doing right now? I mean, you shared in terms of do not quit your job, make sure you take half and you employ somebody while you're building. But besides that, what other advice would you give your younger self?
That's a great question. Yeah, those two you said for sure. Don't quit the day job. Keep the day job. Level up. Serve your employer as best as you can. Focus. Like, one, don't co-found with anybody. Like, you can do that later if you want, but like start something out and get as far as you can on your own, because I guarantee you it'll just get easier because you can start to actually just hire people to fill those roles instead of offering equity, which comes with a lot of confusion and challenges and and difficulties. So one, don't co-found. Two, get a really good job that pays a lot of money. Three, take half of that and figure out what the like smallest version of what you're trying to do is. One, think about a market that is really big that really needs to be disrupted. I think with the in retrospect, like NFTs isn't a massive market. We could have probably 80% market share and not have $1 billion company. In all honesty, I don't think that there's $1 billion company in NFTs in their current format. So again, assess market maybe a bit with a bit more intensity. I would always do that with a caveat of I'm not sure if that's a great strength or a great weakness, but and I know this is a slight, a little off track, and I'll get back to answering the rest of the question in a second here. But we had a lot of VCs say, look, NFT launch pads isn't a venture scalable business. And I was like, yeah, well, it's not the end goal. We're going to do NFT launches. We're going to dominate this. And then we're going to pivot over into like game asset stuff. And I think that they didn't really care to listen to that. And I think that maybe there's part of me that thinks perhaps they were right in not caring to listen to that, because if they want to invest in a game asset launchpad, they can go invest in a game asset launchpad, not an NFT launchpad that wants to go then become a game asset launchpad. Because the gaming industry is massive, the NFT industry isn't massive. So it makes sense for them to be like, no, but it almost makes sense for a small entrepreneur to say, look, if this isn't venture scalable business, then it means that it's really niche, which means I'm not competing against other venture scalable businesses. Because like I said earlier in the call, if you're going into a big market, you're competing against big players that can just stomp you out and not need to have any revenue. They can pay somebody to copy your product at 10x the cost and charge $0 for it and not really care or even blink. So I give that market, total addressable market, like caveat, with the asterisk that I'm not sure if that's right or wrong. I'm not sure if us doing the small market, product for NFT launches, very niche. I'm not sure if it was a genius idea or if it was a poor idea. I haven't competed in a larger market yet. So I don't really know how difficult it is to really go up against like companies that are servicing, total addressable markets that are in the billions to, many billions of revenue on a yearly basis. So that's the caveat I give on that one. The last one I would say is like, if it's a software product, start out with just a Figma like UI mockup, get it in front of a bunch of people, like prototype it, make it feel like it works, get some demo videos, get people's feedback on it as soon as possible, and then take that feedback and build an ugly, minimal, lovable product, and then go from there instead of like thinking you have to hire whatever, a developer, any of that. Like find somebody on Fiverr from another country that like can do the design work very, cheap and get something in somebody's hands as soon as possible.
I like that terminology of the minimal, ugly, lovable product. I'm going to use that now. Just following on that one question you just had, looking back on your journey so far, what is the one assumption you had when you started that turned out to be completely wrong? And what was the hardest lesson you learned from it being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, this is a great question. I mean, I've lost lots of money, so maybe like the assumption underlying those, we made lots of money too, but we've lost lots of money on different things. The assumption that like you can sort of like launch something in a given industry and not have larger macro trends impact it. The assumption that like everything's going to go the same way for a long period of time, and I think this is mainly relevant to like crypto founders, but like we built our original product for Axie Infinity and that crashed within months. We built the next product for like crypto gaming and that narrative died and went 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 away pretty much since 2022 and hasn't been massive really since. But like and then we built for Bear Chain and the chain did well up until launching, and then post chain, it's been down maybe 80% from when the token went live. And look, I'm a big believer in Bear Chain. I love it. We're still holding that token in size. That's pretty unbelievable. But again, that might have been a mistake. We really believed that things were going to stay status quo or even go up, when in reality, a lot of things in crypto are alive for a very short period of time and then die. So like understand the underlying assumptions for the beliefs that you have in which you're building on, because you may have the greatest product in the world, but if you have it in an ecosystem that's dead, or you're building it for another like tangential to another product that dies, or you're building it in an industry that itself is dying, you have to be really careful. So you just have to ask yourself a lot of the fundamental questions and not really shy away from the truth, even if you want to do the right thing, or even if you want to like go provide jobs for people or like build something really cool, like to pick and choose those shots really carefully.
So the would you say the hardest lesson here is that you was the failure of imagination of the downside? Is that a fair way of putting it?
Oof, yeah, I mean, that's a great way of putting it, but it also highlights the fact that like, what does that mean? I mean, you have a strong inclination for seeing the upside in everything. And I would say that that like weird like obsession or quirk is like what actually makes a lot of entrepreneurs great, is that they're just ridiculously hard-headed about like and hopeful about like trying to make something work. And I would say I've seen like the greatest entrepreneurs I know go through crazy hard circumstances because they just refuse to let go of the dream and vision for their life to be a great entrepreneur. And I'd say that's a superpower. So I guess if the opposite of it is just like being more realistic, like I wouldn't vouch for that either.
All right. So Ethan, if somebody was right now to get in touch with you, can you just share in terms of what Kingdomly plans are for the next 6 months?
Yeah. I'd say like, if you want to get in touch with me, just like DMs are open on X. Go hit me up. Say you saw me on Just Start. Say, hey, yo, I'm friends with Resh, whatever, and hit me up there. Next 6 months, I mean, we're going to be building for Web 2, mobile friendly, hopefully moving more into gaming, maybe have a couple interesting new projects on the line to continue improving the core product and launching great collections.
Sure. So Ethan, what's your handle for Twitter and what's Kingdomly's handle and website?
Yeah. My handle is just my full name, including my middle. It's Ethan Edward Rife. And that's, yeah, I won't spell it out. But then the Kingdomly is Kingdomly app, just Kingdom Lyapp. And then our website is kingdomly.
Okay, great, Ethan. Thank you very much, Ethan, for sharing your insights. I'm pretty sure this is going to be an interesting episode when I launch it. And I really hope I'll get you on in the future again.
I hope so too, Reg. Thank you so much for the time that you gave me. Thanks for coming prepared. And it was really good talking with you.
All right, buddy.